I found my long-lost dead sister. Growing up, I was told by my adoptive parents that I was adopted at 10 months old. They're always open about it. They framed up a picture of me and my parents and placed it in my room so I would always remember them. They even track down their grave and take me there once every 2 years. We'll have a little picnic and they will ask me to share my achievements with my biological parents. They didn't change my last name to theirs and allowed me to decide whether I want to change it, which I did in my teens. I'm now 27, I'm a nurse and I live on my own with my cat, Abu, and just a few hours away from my adoptive parents. I have a neighbor, let's call her Anna. She's a marine biologist, married and has 3 kids. We often chat when we bump into each other in the hallway, or her kids will come over to my place to play with my cat. 4 days ago, I got a knock on my door and it was Anna. Turns out her nanny MIA on her at the last minute and is already late for a close friend's wedding and was wondering if I can watch the kids for a couple of hours while they're gone. She asked me if I can watch them at her apartment instead since her youngest is sleeping. I grabbed my stuff and went over next door. We played dolls, played pretend and ordered food and watched a movie after that. So I told the kids to keep their toys before the food arrived, and while we were at it, I saw something that made my heart drop. I saw a picture of my parents. They looked so much younger and it was a different picture from what I had. I asked Anna's kids if they knew who these people were. They told me they have no idea who it was. My curiosity grew more and more. I texted my adoptive parents if they knew I have any siblings. They told me they were not too certain, but in the adoption profile, it stated that I'm alone and without any siblings. A few hours later and Anna got home. I was inquisitive to know and I couldn't wait any longer. I asked Anna who were this young couple. Anna told me it was her parents and they died when she was 6. She was then raised by her aunt. I was shocked. I feel like throwing up. This can't be real. I have a sister. I went home and did some social engineering. I went on Facebook and Instagram to see what I can find. I found the profile of an old lady who I believe is the one that raised Anna. I see that she refers to Anna as her daughter, and I was looking at pictures and I found a rather similar picture to what my adoptive parents gave me, just without me in it. I called my adoptive parents, crying, telling them what I found. They drive for hours to come to me, and when I showed them, the 3 of us cried together. They told me that I should let her know. I don't know if I should because it seems like she doesn't know that I existed. I gathered myself and yes, I spoke to Anna. I invited her to my apartment, away from her kids, so the both of us can sit down and talk about it. I showed her the picture that I have. She's as confused as I am. I told her that we might be sisters. I could see the tears building up at the edge of her eyes. She told me she wants to be excused. She left my apartment and I thought that was it. For a while, there's so much of what ifs. What if she's a cousin? What if the baby in the photo is not me? What if there was a mixed up at the adoption home? A few minutes later, she knocked on my apartment door. She brought her laptop, the photo of her parents and her phone. We compared our pictures and yes, they're the same person. I showed my birth certificate and how I changed my last name during my teens as well as my adoption papers. I told her that I have a birthmark on the left side of my butt cheek, and yes, she remembered. We looked at each other and we started sobbing. She came to hug me and told me that at times she couldn't believe that I'm gone because she loves me so much. She told me how she thought I was dead and that broke her. She video called her aunt, the one that raised her. Let's call her Lucy. When Anna introduced me to Aunt Lucy, she looked horrified. She even asked if Anna got mixed up because she was pretty sure I was dead. We showed her my birth certificate and all the adoption documents, and once she saw there was evidence, she started crying and kept on apologizing. Aunt Lucy was hesitating at first, but we told her how we deserved to know the truth. So here goes the side of the story that I never knew. Firstly, my parents died in 2 separate accidents. My mom and I met with an accident first. I was fine, but my mom suffered multiple injuries, and when my father got to know, he rushed to the hospital to meet my mom, but he lost control of his car and crashed onto the road divider. Both died at the same hospital, just minutes apart. She was then told that I died too. My sister got sick shortly after my parents' death and couldn't attend the funeral. My parents were well-to-do. My dad was a marine biologist, just like Anna, and my mom was a general surgeon. We have an uncle, let's call him John. So apparently, Aunt Lucy and Uncle John needed money. Aunt Lucy has lots of kids, hence she couldn't afford to raise both of us, while Uncle John and his wife were into traveling and could use some money for their adventures. I have no idea how, but somehow, they managed to get whatever our parents have left us and split it into 2. I was given to Uncle John, but he must have placed me at an adoption home and then fled the country. All this while, Aunt Lucy knew about me and how I was placed at an adoption home, but she chose to keep quiet. A few years after I was sent to the adoption home, Uncle John and his wife came back to the nursing to get me back, but they learned that I was already adopted. It's sad to learn his motives were to receive government reimbursement while I was under their foster care. I felt extremely lucky to be adopted by a family who loved, cared for, and raised me like their own. My adoptive parents were a mature couple when they adopted me. They tried to conceive for so many years, but it failed, and so it resulted in me being adopted, and they told me it was the best decision they'd ever made. Anna is not speaking to Aunt Lucy now. She told me how she felt betrayed and deceived, all these while denying a sibling love just for her own personal gain. She's even looking into taking legal action against both of them. Me and Anna embraced for a long time. There's a lot to catch up, and I'm excited that I'm an aunt to 3 beautiful kids. The feeling is foreign, but the feeling of being loved by a sibling is beyond words. Thank you all for your time.
My jealous sister is demanding I change my baby's name because she wants it more. I refused and instead exposed her affair to her husband. I have never had a good relationship with my sister. She is 1 year older than me, and has always been very bitter and even jealous of me. In school, she used to tear up my homework because I was getting better grades than her. She would try to take my toys and clothes at every chance she got, even though she literally already had copies of the same thing. There was a lot more that she did, but I'm not going to go into detail because we'll be here all day. Because of her actions, we grew more and more apart, and went our separate ways after high school. The relationship between us was so bad that she moved to another state and didn't even show up at my wedding, nor I at hers. Now, we both got pregnant this year and she is due to give birth in a month. I gave birth to my beautiful son, Cove, 1 week ago. Everyone has been congratulating me and telling me that I picked a great name. Everyone except my sister. She didn't ask about my pregnancy and never called for any updates, and only knows about the name because she's in our family group chat. She had dropped some baby names that she was considering for her own son a few days ago, and the response was a bit dry. Obviously we were happy for her, but one particularly gave her compliments like that's a great name. I am sure that when she saw me getting those compliments, she flew into a rage. And that's why she called me screaming even though I was still recovering from the delivery. Why the HLL did you name your baby that? That name was supposed to be for my son. You stole that name, you beach. I was baffled at what she was saying. I told her that she had never told me if she had settled on a name, so I wasn't supposed to know. And that I had already named my kid that, so she can pick another name next month. But she refused, saying that I need to change my son's name right away. Apparently, she wanted that name way more than me, and that made her entitled to having it. I didn't agree with her at all and said no to her ridiculous demand. My husband was in the room playing with our baby, and he was literally holding in his laughter. But then, my sister began to question my character, saying that I had done this on purpose. I wasn't about to be gaslighted by her, so I hung up on her and immediately blocked her. Then I pulled up her husband's contact, and began typing. You see, I had caught wind that she was cheating on her husband over a year ago by some mutual friends. Since we weren't close at all and I had never even met her husband, I felt no obligation to tell him the truth. But things had changed after that phone call. I was no longer the scared kid who would take her abuse without saying anything back. I told her husband, you might want to check your wife's phone. She has been cooking up a juicy affair behind your back for more than a year. I also attached pictures of her dancing with her affair partner that my friends had sent me. I imagine that right about now, my sister is calling me like crazy and leaving very angry texts, but since I blocked her, I am at peace. Hey sis, good luck getting divorced 1 month before giving birth.
Am I the jerk for telling my mom I don't give a damn about my autistic brother? My parents were very loving when I was a kid, but when I was 7 years old, my mom gave birth to my younger brother. I tried to love him, but I noticed that as soon as he came, my parents stopped paying that much attention to me. It got even worse when he was diagnosed with autism when he was 3 years old. Now, my dad is never home and my mom talks to me about once a day because she's so busy dealing with my brother's meltdowns. I've known my best friend Rachel since we were in kindergarten. Her mom is the nicest person I've ever met. Rachel and I played soccer, but my mom was rarely able to take me to practices and games, so Rachel's mom would always take me. I used to be in the school choir and my parents went to like one performance during the 6 years I did it. Rachel's mom was at every performance for me even though Rachel wasn't in choir. Those are just a few examples, but Rachel's mom has always been there for me when my parents weren't available. My mom never really cares what I'm doing unless she needs me to watch my brother, so I spend a lot of time at Rachel's house. Once I spent a whole weekend there and my mom didn't even call to ask where I am. Rachel's family go on a lot of vacations and they often take me. They're going to Disney World during Thanksgiving break and invited me to come with them. I asked my dad and he said I could go. They've already planned and booked everything and I'm really excited. I've been to Disneyland once with my family and it was horrible. My brother threw a huge tantrum on the first day because he wanted to go on the rides alone and sit between mom and dad, so I had to stay in the hotel most of the time. My brother found out that I'm going to Disney and he had a really big meltdown. He loves Disney and he was mad that I was going without him. My mom told me that she was planning to go to Washington to visit my grandparents. My dad didn't say anything about that, so I'm pretty sure she just made that up to stop me from going. And even if they are going, I don't want to. I don't want to go on a 14-hour car ride with my brother, and I'm pretty sure when we get there they're either going to make me stay with him while they go out or take him out and leave me alone in the hotel. I also wouldn't be allowed to go out on my own. She told me that I need to think about my brother and his feelings are more important because he's younger and autistic. I told her that I honestly don't give a F about my brother's feelings and I wish he was never born. He was there when I said all this and he's been crying and screaming for the last 3 hours and it's giving me a headache. My mom has been trying to calm him down and my dad said that he'll still let me go because he understands I'm frustrated. He also grew up with neurodivergent siblings, so he knows what it's like. My mom said that I'm a rude, ungrateful brat and I need to be kinder to my brother. Am I the jerk?
My daughter's father refused to help raise her when she was born. Now he suddenly wants to be in her life, but I won't let him. I am a single mother to a 6-year-old girl. I've raised my daughter all on my own. She was born from a one-night stand with a now former friend. We never got together and he refused to be involved in my pregnancy or my daughter's first 4 years of life. I was stressed out emotionally because it's a big change, but I never asked for child support or forced him to be involved. I have enough income to send my daughter to private school. I'm perfectly fine on my own. I did ask him about it more than once though. He has the money to pay child support. He chose not to pay. And he was never prohibited from being involved. He had my phone number. I sent him pictures and invited him to birthdays and other big celebrations. He never came. The issue started when he reappeared from wherever he went and decided he wanted visitation. He's not on my daughter's birth certificate. Father is listed as unknown. He wanted to have that amended. I said no, and that the best he'll get is to meet her on outings with myself or my daughter's godparents. He agreed, but he's been constantly pressuring to get parental rights. Court already gave him a big fat no, unless he pays 4 years of child support, which with his income goes somewhere around $230,000. He hasn't paid a cent. My daughter doesn't even call him dad. Or recognize him as dad. She calls him Mr. I keep it very clean. I never bad talked to him, never made up stories. When she asked about her father, I used to say it was just the two of us. Even during court, the assigned CPS agent testified that my daughter had no affection or clear relationship with her biological father. Now the main issue happened in a PTA meeting. He would say things like my family thinks or what is best for my family. I didn't agree with him and I voiced my opinion by saying my daughter has different needs and those are priorities. He was clearly angry. After the meeting there was a moment for teachers and parents to mingle and just talk about how the kids are doing. One of the teachers approached me to apologize, saying she didn't know my husband and I didn't like a project she was doing with the kids. I told her I had no husband and my daughter loved the project and wanted to be part of it. The teacher then told me that my former friend was going around talking like he's my husband and he represents the family. I saw red. I walked to him and very loudly told him we needed to talk in private. In the parking lot I told him we were not a family and that he either will respect that I am the only one that can make decisions on my daughter's education, or he won't be involved. He went on about being her biological father, then I reminded him he had not paid a cent for the pregnancy, my daughter's needs, or even the private school my daughter is in. He hasn't tried to see my daughter since, which she doesn't mind at all. If you're wondering, I did indeed ask my daughter if she wants to meet him or spend time with him, and she said no. So I am staying firm on my decision. If he tries anything again, I won't hesitate to call the police and take him to court. My child-loving neighbors keep trying to take my daughter and make our kids be a creepy twin couple. I called them out in front of everyone at their Halloween party because they tried to set up our kids together. My husband and I moved to Germany with our kids 4 years ago. So, needless to say, we know the culture despite not being native. Our daughter started school this August for the first time, and many of her classmates live in the same area we do. One of the boys in her class lives at the end of the road behind us. When we first moved into the neighborhood back in May, we were welcomed by a few of our close neighbors and this boy's mother, let's call her Astrid. She took a liking to my baby, but most people fuss over babies so I didn't think much of it. That same day she told me how she had lost 2 baby girls and how lucky I was to have so many girls, and she only had 3 boys. The day after she came with her husband, let's call him Morton, and he too wanted to pick up the baby and paid her a lot of compliments. Until he met our oldest daughter and made a remark that I didn't think much of at the time. He said my daughter and his son could easily pass for twins as they are in the same class, and they look alike. They don't. My daughter is super blonde with gray eyes, and their son has dark dirty blonde hair with hazel eyes. So, corrected him. He feigned offense and said what he meant was that she could pass for his daughter, the baby too. Again I corrected them that with his light brown hair and hazel eyes, neither of my girls could. He once again insisted and said, I mean our features, not the coloring. Then he laughed it off and said he was just joking. They then invited us to go out for drinks, but we declined as neither one of us drinks and we don't like to be too friendly with neighbors. During the summer when we bumped into them at the local store a few times, Morton and Astrid would call her Jula Stern and sing a song from a famous movie. Here. After a few times, I told them to knock it off as it was no longer funny. Since May and up until a week ago they have tried to invite us to many get-togethers which I found strange as they hardly ever invite the neighbors that they have known for longer than us. Morton and Astrid would quite often talk to my daughter on her way back to school, as she passes their house on the way home, and she said that it bothers her as they have both tried to pick her up, and Astrid has tried a few times to touch her hair. When my husband confronted them about it, they said it's just the culture here. It's not. The picking up and touching of her hair stopped after that. At the beginning of October, they wanted us to help them host a Halloween party at the end of October, and wanted us to meet them at their house so we could coordinate the children's costumes, especially the twins. We declined again as we don't celebrate Halloween. They tried to convince us otherwise and were very pushy. Even had their son knock on our door a few times to play with his twin after school. Knocking on doors to play with other children is normal, and most children roam out and about as it's a safe neighborhood and country, so that part was never suspicious to me. However, after the umpteenth time of calling my daughter one of his twins, I put my foot down and said he needed to stop joking about it as it's not funny anymore. My husband goes offshore at times due to his work and it has been me and the children since mid-October. My daughter's teacher also lives in the neighborhood and she is a childhood friend of Astrid. She was present in the park by our house when Astrid came up to me and handed me 3 costumes. One for each of my girls. She said as we don't celebrate Halloween she and her husband had decided to host a Halloween party instead and wanted my girls to wear these. I was shocked but told her no. It would not happen. The teacher tried to convince me that this would be a nice way of meeting other families and it would be fun for our children. Astrid said she had spent a lot of money on adjusting the costumes and had found the right hairstyle for my daughter to go as Gretel to her son Hans. I told her no one made her spend the money as I had made it very clear that none of my children would be going. Right in front of me she took the hairband off my daughter's hair and tried to put one on that she had bought for the costume. I told her to stop and started walking off. She tried to apologize and said relax. We are neighbors and friends. Her teacher followed me and said not to be uptight and that Astrid meant no harm. She just likes girls. On Monday my daughter came home with a different hairstyle and accessories to what I had sent her off with. I asked her how she got them, and she said her teacher had done her hair during lunch. I asked her if she had played rough so her hair needed to be fixed. She said no. Yesterday morning I spoke to her teacher, and she confirmed that it was indeed her who had fixed her hair and that it was Astrid who bought the stuff. I asked her why she would go against my wishes, to which she said it was only hair stuff and Astrid didn't want to throw it away as she had spent money on it. She thought that with 3 daughters, I would appreciate help with some free accessories. She also said that I had not made it explicitly clear not to fix my daughter's hair. I left after telling her to never do it again and returned the stuff. In the evening the neighborhood children went trick-or-treating. Those participating were informed it would last from 6 to 8. I let my daughter go off and play with one of the other girls who wasn't trick-or-treating. At about 7, I couldn't hear them. So, I went outside to check and they were not there. I asked one of the other children if they had seen her and they said Morton and Astrid had collected her in their car, and her friend had gone home. I asked next door to watch my other 2 while I ran with the baby to their place. When I arrived there, they were having a party in the garden and my daughter was there. She had her hair done, and she had a candy bag. She was also wearing the costume. So, in my anger, I called the police before speaking to anyone, and once I got off the call I called both of them child lovers and everything under the sun in multiple languages. When the police arrived and I spoke to them, we left. Today at school, her teacher was very short with me and said there was no need for that as Morton volunteers for the children's football club. Having a police report filed on him was not the wisest of choices. She explained that if I wasn't happy, I should have asked for a mediation appointment at the school instead of embarrassing Astrid and Morton in front of everyone. She also mentioned that it was she who helped my daughter change into the costume, and it's not unusual for teachers to help their students change here. That part is partially true for this country. She said Astrid has been grieving, and her behavior is normal for someone who lost so many children one after the other, and not to make it harder on her as people have gossiped quite a bit about it. She said they didn't know they had crossed a line and it wouldn't happen again, so they just dropped the complaint at the police. On Friday, I have to make a full statement at the police station. She wants me to cancel it as Astrid and Morton are not bad people, and she thinks I should be glad someone else thinks this highly of my daughter. She wasn't harmed, and she sees no reason for me being angry as the children all play in each other's garden anyway. She said not to blow things out of proportion as at no point was my daughter alone with Morton. We filed a report at the police station and they didn't even care. We had 2 female officers on the first day, but a male police officer came and offered us some water, tried to make small talk. He is the ex of my daughter's teacher and told us as much. We had to do the report over 2 days as on the first day my daughter was too tired to relay all the details. On the second appointment, we had 2 female police officers, and her ex also joined us. It seemed like he had already talked to her teacher about it, but he denied it when I confronted him about it, citing confidentiality. I was told they would have a word with Astrid and Morton, but I doubt they took it seriously as all 3 kind of defended their actions. They wanted to know why I wouldn't let my daughter go to a party. When we got home we had a knock on the door in the evening and it was Astrid and Morton. I didn't open the door. On Saturday the 11th, while my daughter was playing in the garden with my next-door neighbor's children, she said Astrid was taking pictures of her from across the street. On Sunday they came by again and kept knocking on the door. They said they knew I was inside and that they wanted to talk. I didn't open the door. I phoned the police and they said if they become violent call back. In the meantime just open the door and tell them you don't want to talk to them. I didn't and they left. They left a message in my postbox. It was a long message about how they felt connected to my daughter and how I should take better care of her. How they know how it feels like to lose a child and that they only want what is best for her. On the 15th I kept my daughter from the school as she said that Astrid's son kept teasing her. Instead, I spoke to the principal about the matter and explained that I needed this absence validated. I took my daughter to the store and I think maybe I was followed because not 5 minutes had gone by when Astrid walked in and bumped into me by the dairy section. She apologized and blocked me in with her cart because I tried to get away. She started talking to my daughter and tried to stroke my baby's hair. So, I screamed. That made her walk away. From me. The day after I found another note in my postbox telling me not to be so hysterical, and I have that saved. I phoned my husband to come home or find a reason to get home ASAP. On the 18th both Astrid and Morton confronted me in the park and wanted to know why I was keeping Julia Stern away from them due to a misunderstanding. I told them politely, Morton is a big guy and I am not as strong as him, that my husband was home. I lied. They walked away. I phoned the police and gave them the latest evidence on the harassment, but they said they would have a word with the 2. On Monday I attended a meeting with the principal and the teacher where she apologized, but she made it out that it was a misunderstanding. The principal was very nice and told the teacher to back off sternly and not to mix her professional life and private life. Astrid and Morton came by my house that evening, and while I was attending to the laundry in the basement they were talking to my girl in the garden and she let slip that her dad wasn't home yet. They gave her some cookies, but she threw them in the outside bin while they watched on. On Tuesday they confronted us on the way to school and asked me why I lied about my husband. Luckily I wasn't alone and one of the neighbors on my street told them to back off. On the way back from picking her up at the end of the day we took a taxi home. In the evening they were banging on my door again and they had their sons with them. I called the police, but they only arrived after they had left. I discussed it with my husband on the phone and he managed to get 3 days off, but he won't be home before this weekend as his workplace didn't see it as an emergency until yesterday's incident. Yesterday they came by again while we were in the park. I was preoccupied with my son and I noticed a tap on my shoulder. It was Morton holding my daughter and he said I should take better care of her as she might walk into the road while my attention is elsewhere. He made it out as if she had run into the street, but my daughter denied it. I grabbed her and the other children and left and packed some stuff. I asked my next door to collect my post and hold on to it while I booked a hotel. She informed me that the post office would do it for free for 14 days, but that she would look out for my house and note if they come by again. Words have gone round that they are being a bit weird about my daughter. I have been staying in this hotel since and my husband is arranging a ticket for us to visit my parents before the Christmas holidays. At this point, I don't want to stay here anymore and my husband will have to ask for a transfer. I spoke to the principal and she said she would check in on my daughter in the morning and keep her at pickup time and I can pick her up from the office. I haven't told the principal about our moving plans just in case she mentions it to another teacher, and it gets back to Astrid's friend. I hate lying, but feel that if I don't it may put us at risk. One of my neighbors on the other side of the street said both Astrid and Morton have mentioned that they suspect that I neglect my child and that they tried to insinuate that maybe I was too overwhelmed with 4 little ones while my husband was offshore. She told them I wasn't and they have now moved on to another neighbor trying to badmouth me. It seems like they are recruiting witnesses/helpers. So, my neighbor said it's best to keep documentation in case they call CPS on us and to get a copy and confirmation from the police that there is bad blood between us. My husband can deal with the paperwork and the aftermath, and join us when he can arrange a transfer, but I am not staying here anymore.